Yes, I know this video is incredibly late, shut up.
Siege X, the new era of Siege. Our biggest update ever, guaranteed to revolutionize the game and fix everything. With 3 years of development, cheaters, bugs, a thing of the past. We're bringing visual overhauls, interactable environments, new repelling mechanics, and a revamped audio system, plus a whole new game mode. And all of this for free. What could possibly go wrong?
The game is unplayable, bro.
No, this game's dog.
The game is horrible and not fun at all.
Siege X is currently unplayable.
I don't like where Siege X is right now. I think it's in a horrible state.
This is the worst season of Rainbow Six Siege I've ever played.
Cheaters are going insane in Siege X.
Cheaters have completely taken over Siege X.
Absolutely infested with cheaters.
They're rampant. They're everywhere.
But I can confidently say that this is the worst it's ever been.
Siege X hasn't really delivered on what the original promise was.
Go! Yes! Go! Yes! Yes!
So what exactly happened? For the past few years, Siege hadn't been in the best state. The game was stagnating with lackluster updates, stability issues, and a consistently terrible cheating problem. Players were fed up and wanted change. Some were calling for another Operation Health. 2 years after launch, the game was in such an unstable state that Ubisoft dedicated a whole season to making it run not like a paraplegic. But it had been 8 years since then, and needless to say, but the game was back in the wheelchair.
Get away!
As it turned out, Ubisoft was planning something like that, and they called it Siege X. It had quietly been in development for 3 years, and would take Siege
to the next level. This is the new era of Siege.
But all those claims would turn out to be sweet little lies, and they'd end up disappointing the community in ways thought only possible by God Howard himself.
It just worked.
The first stop on the short bus is the new price. The game was going free to play. In theory, not a bad idea. Many other competitive games were already free to play. Except there was one thing the Ubisoft forgot about.
Cheaters.
Siege had a massive cheating problem. This is mostly due to the game running an ancient version of BattleEye anti-cheat, which, as deterrents go, is about on par with the teacher telling that one kid not to stick his finger in the pencil sharpener. But with Siege X, Ubisoft pinky promised, cross my heart, hand to God, Scouts honor, for real, swear to on my Dan's grave, that they were gonna fix it this time.
So that was a fucking lie.
Siege X has the worst cheating problem in the game's history. Going free to play had the unintended consequence of basically turning the game into the Purge because there's no consequences for your actions. If you get caught cheating, the only cost is the time it takes to make a new account. What this has resulted in is that in the high ranks, you can expect to see cheaters in literally about half of your games, which unsurprisingly has led many players to writing off all of ranked as a waste of time. The situation had gotten so bad that Ubisoft had to make an official statement apologizing for the amount of cheaters, which is actually a really big step for them, because normally they just say that everything is actually great and to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. And cheating has become so prevalent that you don't even need to pay for cheating software anymore. You can just use OBS. Thanks to some cosmic autism known only to the French, Ubisoft somehow turned OBS, the streaming and recording software, into a cheat client. If you're using it while playing, you know, like it's designed for, it could give you straight up wall hacks. How does this even happen? So that's not great, but at least Siege X fixed all the bugs, right? And by fixed all the bugs, of course what I actually mean is introduce the most game-breaking bugs we've ever seen. If for some reason you don't want to finish a game, unlikely I know, you may want to leave, but you don't want to get the abandon penalty. Well, just pick Castle, and by ripping down his barricades, you can straight up kill the server. It doesn't count as a win, loss, or abandon. It's like the game just never even happened. But if you decide to stick it out, you can instead use Doc, and by healing a down teammate during the prep phase, they become invincible for the rest of the round. Now, this may seem a bit overpowered, but luckily, there are ways for the attackers to counter the defenders using exploits. And that's by using exploits of their own. One of Siege X's big features was improvements to repelling mechanics, which now allow attackers to run on walls and go around corners. It also allows them to repel straight through walls. On a myriad of maps, attackers can abuse this exploit to surprise defenders by suddenly morphing through walls.
Hi, how are you?
Or to reach out of bounds locations, which lets them do things like plant in unreachable spots to guarantee the win, or to walk around to the ceiling doing strafing runs on defenders like this is Viet fucking Nam. But don't worry, the defenders aren't helpless, because they can also glitch themselves into walls and ceilings, meaning there's a very real possibility you can have attackers and defenders fighting each other in the fucking ceiling. And outside of people intentionally exploiting bugs, the game is absolutely riddled with the regular variety, such as Explosions doing 0 damage, explosions doing damage through walls, player animations breaking and sliding around the map like it's prop hunt. Map tricking is super inconsistent and you can end up with bits of wall floating in the air. Kinda like this air jab. Callie's lance won't penetrate walls. Amaru can penetrate walls. The Clash rework working as intended. Monty can get stuck not being able to perform any actions, not even shooting. Oh, your power flashed causing you to leave the game? Sorry, it is literally impossible to reconnect. Enjoy the abandon penalty. Rubber banding drone, rubber banding on certain objects. That is not how you hold a gun. That is not how you hold a phone. Where is my phone? Can you call it? Looks like I misplaced the background too. Deimos' drone can get stuck in the center of your screen. The camera UI likes to disappear. Other times cameras will be slightly off from where they're actually located. Chief, what are you doing with that hammer? And you're doing the wrong pose. Oh, never mind. Hacking a phone counts as breaking a friendly gadget. If Mozzie hacks a drone that was muted, it gets stuck with a glitch effect. Your game settings will reset for no reason. Plenty of legacy bugs have made it through, like shadows being visible through floors, the infinite shooting sound bug, and the mic bug, which completely disables the voice chat.
So funny that mic bug is just a call out.
Not to mention all the performance issues, like the game stuttering, crashing, and the FPS dropping from 100 to 60 like it saw a state trooper. There are so many bugs, it's impossible to list them all. Just play the game and you will see something that doesn't look right. You'll probably also hear something that doesn't sound right, because CJX introduced a new audio engine, which is just a polite way of saying, they broke the audio engine. Like here you can see Sophia drop from the roof onto the balcony. But despite this happening directly in front of me, the audio comes from behind. Or here, where Capitao is shooting from office into archives, but all you can hear is the sound echoing from the hallway to the right. Although sometimes, the audio just completely shits the bed. Sludge goes down, but I can't tell where it's coming from because the shots are completely silent. Turns out Aruni was firing a DMR about 5 feet away. In the developer's defense, they are French. They didn't get to learn how loud guns were by attending an American school. But that's enough about the stuff that obviously needs to be fixed. Everyone knows that cheaters and bugs are unintended problems. So what about the problems that Ubisoft intentionally caused for themselves? One of the most universally hated changes in the history of Siege was Ranked 2.0. Most people don't know how it works, and the people who do know how it works think it's stupid. Because it was such a confusing and generally hated system, Ubisoft realized that the big Siege X update would be the perfect opportunity to rework the rank system. And in true Ubisoft fashion, they completely wasted the opportunity and continued to ignore the community. To oversimplify how most ranked systems work, you get a score based on how good you are. This is your MMR, or matchmaking rating. It's what determines who you play with.
What the fuck are you doing, you ugly piece of shit?
Winning makes it go up, and losing makes it go down. And this number is usually displayed to the player in some way. It's a simple but effective system, and it's how Ranked 1.0 worked. Unfortunately, Ubisoft are French, and therefore have never heard the phrase, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And so decided that this straightforward, easy to understand system just made too much sense, and so introduced Ranks 2.0. Now with Ranks 2.0, the ranks you see in game mean literally nothing. And that's because they're no longer determined by your MMR, meaning the number that represents how good you are and the symbol that represents how good you are no longer correspond. Instead, each player gets 2 ratings, which Ubisoft refers to as your skill and your rank, but the terms real rank and fake rank are a lot more accurate. Your real rank is basically the system as described before. You still have MMR, and that's still what determines who you play with. But with one notable change. All of the information about skill level is completely hidden from the player. Instead, players get to see their fake rank. The way fake ranks are supposed to work is everyone starts the season at the lowest rank. In the beginning, wins award lots of points, and losses only take away a few. And as players approach their real rank, the points gained start to level off, until their real rank and fake rank roughly equalize. But there are so many problems with this system. The most obvious, again, is the amount of confusion it causes. The game does a terrible job explaining how it works. But a rank system shouldn't require a tutorial. It needs to be easy to understand because it's something that every player is going to interact with. And if your ranking system requires developers to do literal hour-long live streams trying to explain how it works, maybe that should be taken as a cue that something has gone critically wrong. Because most players aren't going to go out of their way to do research on how it works. They're going to play the game, see coppers and champs in the same lobby, and think, what the fuck? And what makes this confusion so much worse is how long it can take to reach your real rank. Because it can easily take over 100 games each season. Most people don't even come close to that, which means large portions of the player base never even get close to their real rank simply because they don't play enough. And keep in mind, wins and losses do still affect your real rank, meaning you can be climbing the skill ladder, improving at the game, increasing your MMR, but if you're not playing 100 games every season, you'll never actually get to see your rank improving. Back in the day, you could play like 50 games a season and be climbing the ranks, but now that's not even close to enough. And that's how Rank 2.0 is supposed to work. What makes it worse is that it doesn't work. The gains from wins are meant to level off at some point. But for lots of players, that point is either way too high or just never happens at all. And that means that if you just play a ton of games in a season, you can just brute force your way into a higher rank. What all of this adds up to is that the biggest factor in determining the fake rank you see in game isn't skill. The only thing that matters is how many games you play each season. This is despite the fact that the real skill distribution is a bell curve, meaning the in-game ranks aren't even close to an accurate representation of the real rank distribution. And that makes the ranks you see in game completely worthless at judging somebody's actual skill level, which defeats the whole purpose of having ranks. The reason competitive games give players ranks is so you can know how skilled each player is. It is to rank the players. People like to know how they stack up compared to everybody else, but that doesn't work if everyone is displaying the wrong rank, and lots of people don't even know what skill bracket they're playing in, which is the absolute biggest problem with Ranked 2.0. It fundamentally fails as a ranking system. Ranks are meant to be a simple and intuitive way of conveying information, specifically about skill level. But Ranks 2.0 does the exact opposite by hiding crucial information and actively confusing players by literally trying to separate skill from rank, despite the fact that most people would intuitively think of skill and rank as synonymous. But if rank isn't based on skill and most people are displaying the wrong rank and lots of people don't even know what rank they're supposed to be, then what do these ranks even represent? Your ranking system doesn't rank anything!
Breakfast!
So maybe it's best to take a break from rank to try something new. I'd recommend Battlefield 6. But if you can't afford that, or more likely your computer can't run it, then I guess we're stuck with Siege and Dualfront. Dualfront was the headliner at the Siege X reveal. A whole new way to play the game that will breathe new life into Siege. One small problem though, it kinda sucks. The way that it works is that each team has 6 players in 3 zones, and the goal is to capture the other team's 3 zones. The zones have to be captured in order, and 10 minutes in, an event will happen in the middle that the teams are supposed to fight over to give their side a boost. A lot of people complain that this game mode is confusing. I think they're just stupid. It's really not that complicated. The much bigger issue with Dualfront is it's boring. I'm really bored when I play this. There's just so much downtime in this game mode where nothing is happening. The map is so big and with multiple objectives and only 6 people per team, it means that everyone is spread pretty thin. What makes this worse is that the respawn timer is 30 seconds, plus the time it takes to get back to where you were. All of this combined means you can easily go minutes at a time, not seeing anyone or really doing anything. There's just so much time spent waiting to capture a site, waiting for the next site to open, waiting for the hostage to appear, waiting to respawn, waiting for the enemies to respawn, waiting for me to finish this video. This wouldn't be so bad if you could quickly move between the objectives. That way, instead of waiting on one objective, you could go help with another. But this doesn't really work because the map is way too big. If you're attacking and all of your teammates that are defending die, there's like nothing you can do about it, because it takes way too long to get across this giant map, and by the time you get there, it's already too late. Just to put into perspective how oversized this map is, Empire State from Battlefield 6 measures 0.04 square kilometers. Dualfront measures 150 meters by 190 meters, and that makes it just under 0.03 square kilometers. Not to mention that all the buildings have 2, 3, or even 4 floors. Empire State is designed for 64 players. Dualfront has 12. It's funny because in the trailer for Dualfront they claimed,
"This is fast, fluid, flexible Siege like you've never seen it before."
Yeah, sure, fast, but half your time will be spent standing around doing literally nothing, and fluid and flexible, but you can't adapt to the situation because everything takes so long. I honestly really tried with Dualfront, but it's just boring. And clearly, I'm not the only one who thinks that way, if the queue times are anything to go off of. It sucks because this game mode might not actually be that far off from being a lot of fun. There just needs to be more stuff happening, either by shrinking the map to bring everything closer together, or the much better option, increasing the player count so that there's more people doing more things. Because with Dualfront, it feels like Ubisoft tried to play it a bit too safe, like they were afraid to stray too far away from the core Siege formula. But that just kind of left Dualfront in this awkward middle ground, where it's both not different enough from core Siege as to feel like a whole new unique experience, while also being just different enough to ruin a lot of the aspects that make core Siege great. But the much larger problem isn't even with the gameplay of Dualfront. It's with Ubisoft, once again, not understanding their core audience. Competitive communities are extremely averse to change and trying new things. I'm not saying that's a good thing, but that's just the reality of it. And Ubisoft should know this. Think about how hard it is to get the player base to give a new map a chance. And now you want that for a whole new game mode? Before Duelfront even launched, large portions of the player base were already writing it off as trash. The only way it was going to get any traction was if it was amazing. And based on the general community sentiment, I'm going to say it's not that amazing. And I'm not saying that developers shouldn't experiment with new ideas, but pitting all your hopes for your biggest update in history on getting your extremely conservative player base to try something new? That is a hell of a gamble.
You robbed me, you little bastard!
Especially when they could have put those resources into bolstering the core game with more content. They used to release 2 new operators and a new map every season. Imagine the excitement around the game if they went back to 2 operators and a map, even if just for 1 update. And Duelfront being a new game mode, honestly, just isn't even that interesting or impressive when you consider that there are limited time game modes pretty much every season. And that Duelfront isn't even the biggest game mode they've ever done. Outbreak from Operation Chimera was Ubisoft's take on a zombie game mode and was the precursor to the very mid Rainbow Six Extraction. This limited time game mode had a story, multiple CGI cutscenes, a skin collection, and 3 whole maps. Whereas Duelfront, this new era-defining game mode, had 1 animated story thing, no skin collection, and a whopping 1 map.
It broke new ground!
And let's be honest, Duelfront is basically just Core Siege but bigger. A game mode like Outbreak is obviously a way larger departure from the Core Siege formula, and likely took way more resources to make. And don't forget, Chimera also brought 2 new operators with new guns, where CJX only had 1 operator rework and no new weapons at all. And Chimera was just part of the normal season cycle. It didn't get 3 years of development and this massive showcase event, which was probably Ubisoft's biggest mistake with CJX. Just how much they overhyped such a lackluster update. This update was supposedly in development for 3 years, but what did it even bring? 1 new game mode, which nobody plays, 1 operator rework, which is something they do regularly, slight improvements to repelling, which has led to no issues whatsoever, rework sound, which doesn't work, and new lighting and interactables on 5 whole maps. And that's it, that's 3 years of development. Good work everyone, let's go home. You're seriously telling me that this update for an already existing game was in development longer than any of these entire games, including the base game? If this is what 3 years of development looks like, then the studio has to be run by Yandere Dev.
What a nice view.
And maybe on the back end, there really was 3 years worth of work. Somehow I doubt that. But when you put on this huge event and claim it's going to be a new era and this update's been in development for 3 years, people are going to expect 3 years of content. They're going to expect a massive game-changing update. And CJX just wasn't that. For the Core Siege experience, barely anything changed. At least not for the better. It is genuinely baffling to me just why they would make such a huge deal out of this nothing update. Like, what about this update could possibly warrant this amount of hype and putting on this big event and literally changing the name of the game? What's ironic is that if they didn't make such a huge deal out of this update, it really wouldn't even be that notable. It would just be remembered as that one update that added the game mode that nobody plays. But instead, it's going to be remembered as one of the biggest failures in the game's history, because it shattered what little confidence people still had left in Ubisoft. They had 3 years of dedicated development time and resources, and this is the best they could do. This was their best chance to make huge sweeping changes, and they fucked it up. Instead of prioritizing things like cheaters, game stability, or community feedback, they instead chose to do things like rework the sound and lighting, which generally worked fine, but now have even more issues. Instead of adding more content to the core game, like players have been requesting for years, they instead decided to make a whole new game mode, despite the fact they should have known that the majority of players would hate it. And it just goes on from there. Should we give up on Rank 2.0, a confusing, unrewarding, fundamentally flawed system that has been universally slated since it was introduced? No! Instead, let's reduce in-game rewards to encourage more microtransactions. Let's also remove T-Hunt, disable custom usernames, start censoring the text chat, and use an AI to listen in on the voice chat. Because, God forbid, anybody say the evil fuck word in a rated M game.
You fuckwits!
The game is now saved. You're welcome. Let me tell you, nothing makes me more excited to play a game than when the first thing I see is a rollback letting me know that yet another game was ruined by a cheater, immediately followed by being forced into the store to try to get me to spend money. The biggest effect that CJX had was demonstrating to the world how completely and utterly useless Ubisoft are at managing their own franchises. But really, Ubisoft as a whole isn't doing very well. This video is taking so long that they're not even a billion-dollar corporation anymore. In fact, things are going so badly for them that they had to sell their soul to China. Tencent now owns large stakes in Ubisoft proper, the holding company that's Ubisoft's largest shareholder, and importantly, a new subsidiary, Vantage Studios, which now houses Far Cry, Assassin's Creed, and Rainbow Six, aka Ubisoft's only profitable franchises. It's worth keeping in mind though that Vantage Studios is still under the Ubisoft umbrella, and that the same people who were working on these franchises before are still working on them now. But being part of a subsidiary allows Tencent to have a bit more control over them, and is presumably an attempt to keep these franchises as isolated as possible from the absolute fucking dumpster fire that is Ubisoft. And while it is hard to say exactly how much influence Tencent has on development, since the acquisition, Ubisoft released another statement saying that they were going to start focusing on anti-cheat, balancing, and ranked. And they released an update that was actually pretty good. Mostly. But honestly, that just raises even more questions. Like, why didn't your supposed biggest update ever address any of these major issues? Well, I'm not one for conspiracy theories, unless they're funny, but it is possible that the developers never intended Siege X to actually be a thing. What might have happened is that the Ubisoft executives realized how fucked they were, and so they went to the Siege team and basically said, "You gotta do something to bail us out." We got this new game mode we've been working on, and a few of the guys have been dinking around with some Unity assets, but that's about it. Perfect! We'll make a huge deal out of this, and then we'll make the game free to play, and we'll get tons of new players, and they'll all give me money in the store, and it'll save the company! Sir, I'm not so sure that— I'm a genius! It really is a shame, though, that it had to get to the point where a third party needed to step in for Ubisoft to start fixing their mistakes. Even beyond Siege, they've developed a reputation for making the most bland and uninspired games in the industry. But like every large corporation ever, they've ignored any and all feedback or issues until it was too late. And if Siege X is any indication of the quality of content that they were making as an independent studio, then an acquisition was inevitable. But at least things finally seem to be on the upswing. Oh look, the source code leaked! Allowing hackers to ban the entire player base, unban them, spam messages in the chat, and finally, forcing Ubisoft to shut down the entire game. But not before giving each player billions of credits, completely annihilating the in-game economy, and technically defrauding Ubisoft of over $339 trillion. Oh, Ubisoft.